There are many YouTube creators out there who are making videos about men who are no longer reading as many books as they used to, explaining the reasons why men are not reading books, placing blame on who is responsible for men not reading books. But what books did men read when they supposedly read more books? Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and today I want to dive deep into a subject that's exploding on YouTube. This is why men aren't reading as many books as they used to, that men used to read more in the past. Now, some people are willing to place blame. There are some video makers who say that the amount of women writers and the amount of women publishers available today are so much in demand, are so popular that men no longer want to read those books. I think that is not quite right. There may be just a little grain of truth that the influx of women into publishing may be pushing some men readers out, but I don't think that's a main cause, and that's not the subject of this video. There are also many videos that are explaining that books just aren't as good as they used to be in the past, and maybe men just like quality books, so we're no longer reading these books that are just not as good as they used to be. Again, I think there is a little grain of truth to that. I don't think that would be the whole explanation, and that again would be a subject for a completely different video. There's also an author out there, Douglas Stuart. He is a Scottish author. He has published 3 novels. He did Shuggie Bain, Young Mungo, and John of John. He's a very well-respected author nowadays, and he is claiming that the lack of men reading will create a decrease in empathy, and that will be a big downside for our future societies because men no longer empathize by reading fiction. I will be talking a little bit about that at the end of this video. But my main focus is on what books were men reading when supposedly they read more books. Obviously, I cannot know for sure, and the vehicle I used to determine this was looking at the bestseller lists. Now, a bestseller list only says what books sold the most. They don't say who has been reading these books. But I decided to look at the June 1986 bestsellers and compare them against the June 2026 bestsellers and see if an average person can detect a difference in the types of books that were being read. Just as an aside, I would like to point out that I used to work for a bookstore, Crown Books in Bethesda, Maryland, in the late 80s to early 90s, and a lot of men were buying Tom Clancy books at that Crown Books in Bethesda, Maryland. They would come in and ask, "Do you have the new Tom Clancy book?" And they just so happened to be standing next to a tower of Tom Clancy books, fresh from the publisher. As an employee, I would reach over that stack and hand them the new Tom Clancy book and go, "There you are, sir." And they'd go to the register very happy with their new novel. Just so happens that no Tom Clancy novel appears on the bestseller list that I'm using for this video. That's just sort of an oversight on my part. I wanted to include the current bestsellers from June of 2026, and I decided that a 40-year history was a good look back to what was published back then. Tom Clancy had only published 2 books by then, Hunt for Red October in 1984 and Red Storm Rising, which I think was 85, but he had no bestsellers in 1996, but he had similar authors. You had Robert Ludlum, You had Jean Le Carré, so you had plenty of spy thrillers to pick from in June of 1986. And again, I can confirm, men were buying those books and reading those books back then. Okay, let me give you the June 1986 bestseller list. Number 1, Last of the Breed by Louis L'Amour. A Native American Air Force major escapes Soviet captivity and must survive a trek across Siberia using traditional hunting and tracking skills. Number 2, A Perfect Spy by Jean Le Carré. British intelligence officer Magnus Pym disappears, prompting an investigation into his life and possible betrayal. Part spy thriller, part psychological study. Number 3, I'll Take Manhattan by Judith Krantz. Glorious family intrigue in the world of publishing, fashion, money, and power. Number 4, The Bourne Supremacy by Robert Ludlum. Jason Bourne is forced back into action when a deadly imposter begins committing assassinations in his name. Number 5, Lie Down with Lions by Ken Follett. Espionage and romance during the Soviet war in Afghanistan. Number 6, The Prince of Tides by Pat Conroy. A former football player confronts family trauma and his southern upbringing with help from his troubled sister. Number 7, Whirlwind by James Clavell. During the Iranian Revolution, helicopter pilots and their families struggle to escape the chaos. Number 8, Wanderlust by Danielle Steele. A young woman searches for love and fulfillment while traveling the world before World War II. Number 9, 8 by Stephen King. Childhood friends reunite to face the shape-shifting evil that terrorized them decades earlier. Number 10, Wobegon Days by Garrison, Keillor. Humorous stories and reflections about life in a fictional Minnesota town. Some observations of these 10 books. There are 7 male authors and 2 female authors. Dominant genres: spy thrillers, 3. Adventure survival, 1. Horror, 1. Historical political epic, 1. Literary family drama, 1. Humor, 1. Glamorous romance family saga, 2. Settings and themes in June of 1986, Cold War geopolitics, military conflict, espionage, survival, terror and horror, masculinity and family trauma, national and international events. Now the June 2026 bestseller list. Number 1, The Ballad of Falling Dragons by Sarah A. Parker. Romantic fantasy set in a world of dragons, magic, and political conflict. A continuation of the Moonfall series, emphasizing romance and destiny. Number 2, Ironwood by Brittainy Cherry. Contemporary romance involving family secrets, emotional trauma, and a second chance at love. Number 3, The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Popular sports romance featuring a fake relationship between a college hockey player and a fellow student. Number 4, Theo of Golden by Alan Levy. A gentle, inspirational novel about a small-town clockmaker whose life quietly influences those around him. Number 5, Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. Historical fiction involving time travel and a woman transported to the 19th century. Number 6, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. A lone astronaut awakes deep in space and must save Earth from extinction. Combines hard science and humor. Number 7, The Final Target by Nora Roberts. A suspense novel about a reclusive author pursued by an obsessive fan while trying to rebuild her life in Oregon. Number 8, Whistler by Ann Patchett. Literary fiction centered on family relationships and long-buried secrets, with Patchett's characteristic focus on character and community. Number 9, Light Wielder by Rachel Schneider. Fantasy adventure involving magical powers and a struggle between rival forces. Number 10, Harvest Season by Brynne Weaver. Dark romance and suspense with themes of obsession and revenge. Some patterns for June of 2026 stand out. Romance or romantasy dominates. Relationship-focused stories greatly outnumber action-oriented stories. Only one overtly science fiction title appears. Thrillers are present, but not in the Tom Clancy or Michael Crichton mode that dominated the bestseller list of the 80s and 90s. Comparing these two lists, the contrast is striking. In 1986, there was the Cold War. In 2026, there was romantasy. 1986, espionage. 2026, romance. 1986, military adventure. 2026, relationship drama. 1986, male authors dominate. 2026, female authors dominate. 1986, external conflict. 2026, internal emotional conflict. 1986, heroes on missions. 2026, characters finding themselves. 1986, geopolitical stakes. 2026, personal stakes. But the world of 1986 and 2026 are completely different. Our lives are different. In 1986, cable TV was in 40% of the homes, and in 2026, it still exists, but it's declining. The VCR in 1986 was in 35% of the homes. It is now obsolete technology. The internet, there was none in 1986, or essentially none. In 2026, it's universal. Video games in 1986 was a very niche market. In 2026, it's just a massive industry. Smartphones, none existed in 86. And in 2026, everyone has a smartphone. Social media is universal now, but did not exist in 1986. The same with streaming video and podcasts and YouTube, and audiobooks were a very small market in 1986, but in 2026, audiobooks are a huge market. Book Talk did not exist in 1986, but today it is a major influence on the book industry. So what does this all have to do with the declining male readership? I've already shown you the two bestseller lists, and at least to my eye, it's obvious that men were reading in 1986 with that list, but with the 2026 list, you can kind of detect that the male readership has gone away. And what exactly is the reason for that? I don't know. A lot of it just has to do with what men are able to do nowadays. In 1986, with that comparison of technology, you had a lot less choices back then. You did have other choices other than reading books, but the choices were fewer. Nowadays, I think that the male readership, especially the younger male readership, is looking at those options and seeing them much more enticing, much more alluring than what was available in just a book. But maybe, just maybe, if there were more books like there were in 1986, that it appeared that men were reading rather popularly, more readers would be attracted to this kind of books. I don't know. Those books still exist. Authors are still writing them, but they're not making the bestseller list the way they used to. So this is really just 2 points in time, in 40 years difference of what people read. And presumably the men were reading much more back in 1986. Now, is the lack of male readership a concern? Scottish author Douglas Stuart has expressed his concern over the decline of reading among adults, suggesting that men have decided that fiction isn't for them. He says, "How do you fix it? I don't know. If it goes on too long, we'll all feel the societal effects. We're going to end up with more people in power who lack empathy that hurts all of us." Douglas Stuart is making an argument about fiction as a vehicle for empathy, not about what kinds of fiction men should read. The irony is that his own novels probably wouldn't have landed on the 1986 bestseller list, despite featuring many themes that men often say they want to see. There is evidence that reading literary fiction can improve performance on some measures of perspective taking and empathy in experimental settings, but the findings are mixed and the size and durability of the effect are debated. Reading is one way people may develop empathy, but is unlikely to be the only one or a guaranteed one. Military service, caregiving, close friendships, religious communities, theater, film, and life experience can all captivate empathy well. If fiction helps cultivate empathy, why did the most popular fiction of 1986, which was filled with spies, soldiers, detectives, survivalists, also produce generations of devoted readers? Were those readers of 1986 more or less empathetic than the readers of 2026? That's a richer question because it avoids assuming empathy only comes from emotionally introspective novels. A reader of The Last Breed, The Prince of Tides, and Shuggie Bain may all be experiencing empathy, just through different forms of narrative experiences. That's really a fascinating thought. Maybe Shuggie Bain is just as good as The Last of the Breed if you want men to develop empathy. Now, getting them to read The Last of the Breed or Shuggie Bain is a completely different subject. I don't know how to do it. Thank you for watching and keep on reading.